So hopefully, if you want to use that, I've never thought that was all that helpful, but people like to have the PowerPoint, so I sent it. Then you can do that, and hopefully what I've explained to you here will make the PowerPoint much more, understandable. And I think that was the big thing I wanted to do, because the next readings are on government spending, and they're easy, all right? So you can do those. In fact, many of you already have and sent me your answers. And let's see what was after the government spending. Oh yeah, the different types of demand for cash. Let me do that real quick. Let me do that. That's one that you really need some lecture for. All right. Now, I already showed you, maybe I'll do this fascinating trick again where you just hold the paper up to the camera rather than draw this up there. I already showed you, I'm going the wrong direction, that little tree thing here where, here's income at the top, and what are you going to do with your income? Well, you're either going to spend it or save it. And then how are you going to save it? Well, either as cash or as some other liquid asset. Well, why do people want cash? All right. Why would anyone want to hold cash? And that's what this next study question is about. It's number 52. Why would people want to hold cash? And he says there's 3 reasons why they want to hold cash. And I'm not going to write the whole thing out. It's in the book. It's easy to find. But I do want to explain it to you. Transactions motive, the precautionary motive, and the speculative motive. Okay, transactions. Why do you want to carry some cash with you? Well, I'm going to the Texas State Fair today and they don't take credit cards. Or I want to keep some money in my checking account because that's cash as well, because I'm going to have payments coming due and I may go out to a restaurant or something like that. I don't want to have to call my broker and cash in some stocks every time I want to go to Walmart. So that's transactions demand. And it's expected to be sort of regular demands that you have all the time, sort of systematic and habitual demands for cash. Now, the study question also says, which one did Keynes later decide, you know what, that was misspecified, and it's this one right here, okay? I'll come back to why. The second one's the one I've been talking about in class a lot, where you hold on to cash because you're scared, all right? Now, theoretically, it can also be holding on to cash for maybe a positive surprise in the future. I'm going to hold on to some cash in case some opportunity comes up. But generally speaking, it's going to be a negative thing, all right? After September 11th, after the financial crisis, you're changing your assets into cash because cash is already cash. Whereas a share of stock, you have to change into cash, and its price can change, or you could find nobody that's willing to buy it from you, whatever. Cash is cash, all right? So that's the precautionary demand for cash. Speculative. What it literally says is, and I've never liked this definition, but he said it, so we're stuck with it. The object of securing profit from knowing better than the market what the future will bring forth. What in the hell does that mean? All right, I'll tell you. All it's really talking about is, and normally as economists we write the word money down there, but honestly if you say cash, people understand a lot better what you're talking about. I don't literally mean cash in hand. It can be in your checking account too. In fact, most of it will be. And let me write that in a better marker pen. Here's the interest rate on the vertical axis. And there is, as Davidson labels it, I'll put it, D sub M superscript S. I always like to label it a different way, but I'm going to do the same way that he does it in the book. The demand for money speculative, DMS, all right? Now, this shows how much cash people would like at different interest rates, and this is related to this speculative demand. For example, if banks are offering no interest whatsoever, then that's how much cash people will hold for speculative purposes. Remember what speculative said? The object of securing profit from knowing better than the market what the future will bring forth. The idea is that this is a part of your savings that you're perfectly willing to put into some interest-bearing asset. All right. But now, as I was saying in class today, if you're buying a certificate of deposit, or was it yesterday? 1 month versus a 6 month versus a 12 month. What do they pay you more for? They pay you more for the 12 month, right? Because the longer they can get you to give up your access to cash, the more they can do with that cash themselves, and they know you'd rather have cash, all right? So that when you lock in on a higher interest rate, you have given up control of your cash for a longer period of time. Well, when interest rates are really low, you're like, well, screw this. I mean, I'm willing to buy a bunch of CDs or bonds, but the interest rates are so low, I'm going to just hold this as cash right now. Honestly, I'm not holding this as cash because I think I want to spend it. I'm not holding it as cash because I'm scared. I'm holding it as cash because I think that surely to goodness interest rates are going to go up, all right? So I don't want to lock myself into an interest rate when it's so low. And of course, this is, you know, a similar situation here, but just with a slightly higher interest rate. People would demand a lot of cash, not as much as before, but a lot of cash. Why? Because interest rates are so low, and you're thinking, I'm speculating that interest rates will go up, so I'm going to hold this as cash and wait until they do, all right? Now, contrast that with something at the very top. Here, let's do this one first, all right? Up here, when the interest rate is right here, the demand for cash is tiny, right? Why? Because you're thinking, man, let's sink this stuff into CDs and bonds while we can. Interest rates are so high, I'll bet there's nowhere they can go but down, all right? So I better lock into these rates right now. So you're willing to hold very little cash and instead sinking into bonds. And of course, this point up here where it intersects, what if CDs paid 1,000,000% per second? Then you would hold no cash, all right? You would say, you know what, I'm sinking it all into that. So that way I can retire in about 5 or 6 minutes. So this is extremely high interest rates, and you're thinking there's nowhere they can go but down. I better lock in while I can get it, all right? So this is distinct from this. And by the way, this is the subject of study question number 53, which I emailed around because it has a graph on it, all right? And all the ones with graphs I emailed around. But this is the subject of 53. 53 goes into this one in more detail. So once again, and this is the hardest one to understand. This is cash you're holding, not because you're thinking you're about to spend it on, you know, goods and services or whatever, not because you're worried about the future, but because, hey, this is money I'm willing to put into bonds. But right now, what bonds are paying isn't sufficient for me to put all of that money into bonds. When the interest rates were here on the blue line, man, I'm holding mostly cash because I'm willing to put that money into bonds. I don't want to hold this because I'm scared. I don't want to hold this because I'm thinking about carrying out a transaction. I'm only holding it in reserve to grab those bonds when they go up in interest rate. All right, so that's why it's speculative, okay? Okay, so I told you that this one was misspecified. He got some criticism after the general theory came out, and he said, you know what, you're right, that's a good point. I should have included that. I can't believe I forgot. What about the demand for cash by firms when they're going to undertake an investment? When TCU is going to build a new performance hall, we're going to demand cash. We're going to want deposits in the bank that we can then draw on to pay the construction workers and so forth. We're going to have a big demand for cash up front. And he later, we don't have this in our class, but he called it the finance demand. Now, what's very similar to the transactions demand in that it's demand for cash you know you want to spend, but this is like an every once in a while thing. This is, you know, what you do every month. This is like, you know what, we need to add on to the football stadium. And so we've talked to a contractor, we've got a price, we're going to go to the bank and, you know, borrow the money, and then we'll draw down on that money as we pay off the construction workers and so forth. So that's the finance demand, and that's why he said that this one was misspecified. He said, I should have included that. How stupid. And as we cover other stuff, I think you'll see why he thought to himself it was dumb that he forgot that, because it plays such an important role elsewhere. Why he forgot to put it in here, he was confused by himself. Okay, let's see. That's study question number 53. Then we'll go through financial markets. All right. The next one I'm looking at right now is number 54, which I've emailed around, and I'm trying to decide right now. Okay, I made a decision. Here's how much I'm going to tell you about it. Again, I'm trying to arm you with enough information so that over the weekend, you can get 90% of the way there. I may have to fix some stuff up on Monday or whatever, but and I may be in class tomorrow. Who knows? But 54. All right. To explain this properly, it takes a bit, and I wasn't going to explain it properly until Exam 2 material. But let me just say right now that banks. Okay. what I learned as an undergraduate, and actually as a graduate student too, was that this is how the money supply worked. Money, interest rate, because the money supply is going to be setting the interest rate. And here's, for example, is a demand for cash. Oops, sorry, that was terrible. Here, for example, is a demand for cash. How does Davidson do this? D sub N. Demand for money. That's all three added together, all right? All three demands for cash added together. What I learned in school, and what I'll bet you did in your intro class was, and the Fed sets the money supply. Now, what does he use for this? MS. All right. The Fed sets the money supply. And they do so through open market operations. They do so by adjusting the discount rate, or whatever they call it nowadays. Can't think of the name. Or actually, what they target is the federal funds rate. Or they can change the reserve ratio, but they don't really do that very often. So, but the Fed sets it. And whatever the Fed wants the interest or the money supply to be, it is that number. All right. So the Fed sets the quantity of money. And then in interaction with the demand curve, that sets the interest rate. That's not right. It's not true. It's not even a good simplification. The Fed actually has a very difficult time setting the money supply because the private sector has a great deal of control over the money supply. I am going to do a little bit of the accounting stuff here. Don't cry. Assets, liabilities. Oh no, I already have another video on this. All right, so I'll show you where that is. All right, so the bottom line is going to be, so I'll show you that video so you can go, oh, it's a much better explanation than I was going to be able to do right here quickly. So bottom line is, once you see that video, it's going to say, look, okay, here's your demand for cash, and there's the supply. What the Fed does is the Fed sets an interest rate, all right? And they allow the money supply to fluctuate, which they kind of don't have a choice about, which you'll see on the other video. But they allow the money supply to fluctuate here while they target the interest rate and hold the interest rate still, all right? And part of the problem is, a big part of the problem is, that the money supply, when a bank makes a loan, it creates new money. I mean, I saw a study where it said that 90-some% of all the money in the UK, I don't know if anybody's done the study for the US, was simply created when somebody took out a loan. All right. Now, again, you'll have to watch the other video to understand that in more detail. But the idea is that when the bank makes a loan, it creates money. When you pay back a loan, it destroys money. So the money supply fluctuates all by itself. The Fed doesn't have a lot of direct control over the money supply. And we're going to go into that a lot more detail when we get to inflation. I'm only pointing it out here to explain that graph that I sent around for number, whatever that is, I can't see, 54. And this is getting to close to the end of what I was going to talk about. I do want to read this one to you here, 55. According to Keynes, I feel like a newscaster. According to Keynes, who holds the key position in the transition from a lower to a higher scale of economic activity, and what happens if they refuse to relax. There's a second part of the question, I'll save that for a minute. Banks hold the key position. Keynes says banks hold the key position in the transition from a lower to a higher level of economic activity. And you know why? Who have I got to go talk to if I'm going to undertake an investment? And I've already emphasized how important investment is in determining the level of economic activity. I got to go to a bank, all right? So banks hold the key position. If they refuse to relax, and remember, by the way, in that demand function, the last variable was E, the ease with which you can get loans. If they refuse to relax, the growing congestion in the short-term loan market will inhibit improvement. In other words, if they don't loan out the money, investment doesn't happen. All right, so investment can't happen unless the banks agree that the investments are a good idea. Second part of the study question. The investment market can become congested through what and not through what? And actually, well, shut up, John. The investment market can become congested through a shortage of cash. It can never become congested through a shortage of savings, all right? Savings is not what finances investment. Credit finances investment, and credit is made up on a computer screen. And actually Keynes adds after that, this is the most fundamental of my conclusions in this area, or something like that, which has been almost forgotten, by the way. Okay, then 56 is one that I'm not going to go into that one right now. It's really interesting, but I don't think we'll do that one. And then 57 through 68 are pretty easy. All right, so that's the rest of them. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. This should catch you up a lot, and may the force be with you.